explaining one of the most powerful and yet dangerous abilities in all of Hunter x Hunter, and that is Kurapika's Scarlet Eyes, aka his Emperor Time, aka the thing that cost him 5 years of his life when he took a nap once. So Kurapika's Scarlet Eyes are one of the most misunderstood abilities in Hunter x Hunter, and that's because they are kind of confusing in how they operate. Not to mention the fact that they're only one facet of his several different abilities and capabilities, but I would argue they're the most important because they enable or at least empower the rest of his abilities. And that's because when Kurapika activates the Scarlet Eyes, he becomes a nin specialist, something that then allows him to utilize the abilities he's crafted to their full effect. Because Kurapika is normally more toward the conjuration side of the spectrum when it comes to nin, but all of his various abilities utilize different facets of the entire nin diagram. So by activating the eyes, activating what he calls Emperor Time, he becomes a specialist, which then lets him use all of these things to their true potential. Now, in order to explain what that actually means, we have to dive into how nin works. So, when Kurapika isn't using his Scarlet Eyes, he's not a specialist, and he's actually a conjurer, because that is his natural nin affinity. And if you recall, how nin affinities work is that whatever you are, you have the most potential in and the most efficiency in when it comes to spending your aura. And then the further away you get from that node, the less potential you have and the less efficient you are with your aura. So, for example, transmutation being the one closest to it, you can reach 80%, right? Then we take another step away, enhancement in this case, you could reach 60%. And then we go to emission, which is the furthest away from conjuration, so it represents the least potential and the least efficiency you have, being 40%. And then we take a step back up as we get closer back to conjuration. Specialist is listed at 0% here because specialist is an anomaly, right? It doesn't operate by the same rules. If you don't fall into any of these categories, you become a specialist. So that's why it's 0 and not 80% in this instance, right? So you can think of this graph as Kurapika when he's not using his eyes, meaning he's going to be good at conjuration stuff, but anything else he's going to be less efficient in, meaning if it costs him one aura, let's say, to cast some sort of nin conjuration, and then he wants to cast something that costs one aura but it's emission, it will actually cost Kurapika 2.5 aura because he's 40% efficient in emission. So I hope that makes sense. But not only efficiency, it also comes down to skill level. So in this graph, we have an example of Kurapika being a level 10 conjurer, which again, if you think of it like a video game, that means he could cast level 10 conjuration spells. And it means he's only capable of casting up to level 8 transmutation and so on and so forth. Meaning emission, his worst category, he'd only be able to cast level 4 emission spells, even though he's level 10. So let's assume he just strides up on a level 4 emitter, even though he's level 10, and they decide to duke it out only using emission spells. They are going to be equal. Kurapika's emission spell isn't going to be stronger because he's level 10, because he's capped at level 4. So here's an illustration of this at play. We've got Kurapika as a level 10 conjurer casting a level 4 emissive ability, which is the highest level at which he can cast an emissive ability, and it's only at 40% efficiency, meaning he's only getting 40% bang for his buck with the same amount of aura, versus a level 4 natural emitter, meaning they're casting at level 4, even though it's their maximum, and they're casting at 100% efficiency, getting the most bang for their buck with their aura. So these two are actually equal in this regard, and equal only assuming Kurapika pumps 2.5 times more aura into his level 4 emissive ability in order to make it equal to the natural emitter's 100% level 4 ability. So you're just fighting an uphill battle. Now, this is all important to understand because Kurapika, as a natural conjurer, has conjured chains for his abilities, right? So we're all good, except we're not, because even though those chains are conjured, the abilities that each chain represents dive into all of the other nin categories. Like he has a chain that heals him, and that dips into enhancement, right? He has judgment chain, which can set a condition and manipulate somebody, and that dives into manipulation. So Kurapika's abilities are all over the map, which is going to be extremely inefficient and thus bad for him. But that's where the Scarlet Eyes come into play. When Kurapika activates his Emperor time, he no longer is a conjurer and becomes a specialist. And his specialist ability takes him from this nin graph to this one, where he is now 100% efficient in every other nin category, meaning he's going to be able to cast that spell with the same mana cost as every other specialty. However, what's important to note here is that this doesn't mean he's now equal level in every category. So as a level 10 conjurer, he is still just a level 4 emitter, even with his Scarlet Eyes activated. So he can only cast up to a level 4 emission spell, but now he's 100% efficient doing so. And here's the visual representation of that. Level 10 Kurapika is still casting the level 4 emissive ability, but now the Scarlet Eyes are making up the difference in efficiency. So he's 100% efficient, just like a natural emitter. So this is an extremely potent ability, but as is the case with most things in Hunter x Hunter, it comes with a cost. And as Kurapika himself tells us, the rules for Emperor time are that it shortens my life by 1 hour for every second it's active. Every single second that he has these Scarlet Eyes, he is shortening his life by an hour. 24 seconds, an entire day gone. And to cite back to the example I gave at the start of this video, one time while Kurapika was using his Emperor time, he got so exhausted that he passed out, except his Emperor time continued. And by the time he woke up, it had been 12 hours, or over 43,000 seconds, which roughly equates to 5 years of his life just down the drain. 5 years from just one use of this ability. And there's no telling how much time he's actually shaved off from all of his uses of Emperor time throughout this series. So while this is an incredibly powerful ability, it is certainly a double-edged sword. Each time is basically a roll of the dice because Kurapika has no idea how long he is actually going to live. He doesn't know what his sum total is that he's shaving off. It could be 3 days from now as far as he knows, right? Maybe it's 60 years. There's really no telling, but that's what makes this ability just so compelling. Now, as for the rest of Kurapika's abilities and what each of his chains do, I think we'll be best suited to dive into those in their own video. But speaking of abilities, I did get this comment from Krollo, and thank you so much for the support, man. But this is actually a comment I've gotten from a lot of people ever since we started covering Hunter x Hunter. For those of you unfamiliar, in our Discord, we have a whole economy of custom curse techniques from JJK, where people craft their own curse technique, have tournaments battling them, and I've had a lot of people ask, might we do something like that with Nin and Hunter x Hunter? And I'm certainly open to it, but I'm just kind of gauging interest out there to see how many of you would actually be down for something like that. So if that sounds fun to you, if you're already in the Discord, or if you're not, let me know down below, and we definitely might get that going as well. But as always, y'all, thank you guys so much for watching.